This is what Dr. Brown, an American radio host, said about the Sabbath.
If I was going to make an argument for that in an ongoing way for all believers, and it was one day of the week, then I would say it's the seventh-day Sabbath. So if I was going to make that argument, I would not argue for Sunday.
Are you shocked? He is not a Seventh-day Adventist. Dr. Brown does not believe in keeping the seventh-day Sabbath, but he seems to understand some truths about the Sabbath. So in this video, we are going to look at some of the truths Dr. Brown shared about the Sabbath, and we will also see what he does not understand about the Sabbath. All right, and friends, please, this video is going to be in 3 parts. This is going to be part 1, and the part 2 and 3 will be published here on this channel. So with that being said, let's get right into the video and let's listen to what Dr. Brown said about the seventh-day Sabbath. All right, let's get into it.
But I'll also explain why I do not believe that scripturally God changed the Sabbath to Sunday. If I was going to make an argument for Sabbath keeping, if I was going to make an argument for mandatory Sabbath keeping, in other words, just like God says, don't murder, that he says, keep the Sabbath in the 10 Commandments, right? If I was going to make an argument for that in an ongoing way for all believers, and it was one day of the week, then I would say it's the seventh-day Sabbath. So if I was going to make that argument, I would not argue for Sunday. But we're going to look at this together. We're going to examine the scriptural evidence. Let's go back to the beginning. Genesis chapter 2. Second chapter of Genesis says that the heaven and the earth were finished and all their array. And on the seventh day, God finished the work that he had been doing. Vayichal Elohim bayom hashvi'i malachto asher asa. On the seventh day, he finished the work that he had been doing. Vayishbot, right from the root Shabbat. So here we get Shabbat from here, Sabbath. Vayishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol malachto asher asa. And he ceased. So Sabbath having to do with cessation of work. He ceased on the seventh day from all the work he had done. And then it says this, Vayivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, vayikadesh oto. So God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that he had done. Kivo shavat mikol malachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. All right, so an argument can be made from this, that at creation, the seventh day was set apart as holy, and that God blessed it, so that there is something special about the seventh day, that it commemorates God ceasing from his labors, resting from his labors. After finishing the 6 days of work of creation, he then himself ceased from work on the seventh day, blessed that day, set it apart as holy, and therefore it remains set apart, blessed, and holy. That would be an argument. I'm making the argument now for seventh-day Sabbath keeping. Now, even though God does not command it there, God does not tell Adam, you are to rest on the Sabbath, that doesn't come up. He's told to work the garden, and he's never told about the Sabbath. You could say that God did set it apart then.
All right, so friends, let me pause and come in here. This is what Dr. Brown said about the Sabbath as found in Genesis chapter 2. Yes, friends, Genesis chapter 2 shows us some truths about the Sabbath. And these truths are very important. So I would say we find some important truths about the Sabbath in Genesis chapter 2. We find out that the Sabbath is the seventh day of the week. That's the first truth. We also find that God rested on this day, on the seventh day. That is another truth. We also find that God blessed the day and sanctified it. That is the third truth about the Sabbath. So, right in Genesis chapter 2, we can find so many truths about the Sabbath right there. So with this, I can boldly say that Dr. Brown was correct about the Sabbath in Genesis chapter 2. All right? But the question is, for whom did God make the Sabbath? For whom did God make the Sabbath? And Jesus answers this question in Mark chapter 2, verse 27. That says, the Sabbath was made for man. Now, Dr. Brown proceeded and made some interesting comments about the Sabbath. Let's watch that, and after that, I will add my thoughts, all right? So let's get into it.
We next go to Exodus chapter 16. Exodus chapter 16, and here we have the account of the children of Israel. They have come out of Egypt. They're now in the wilderness. This is the beginning of what's going to be 40 years in the wilderness. Of course, they don't know that. But they come into the wilderness, and they set out from Elim. The whole Israelite community comes to the wilderness of Sin, and it goes on. They grumble against Moses and Aaron because what are we going to eat and so on. If only we had died by the hand of the Lord. We were taken care of in Egypt. So how quickly they forget that they were slaves there. All right. And God's going to give a solution. The Lord says to Moses, I'll rain down bread for you from the sky. The people go out and gather each day's portion. But on the sixth day, when they apportion what they have brought in, it shall prove to be double the amount they gather each day. All right. So this is the manna, which is then poured out for them. So each day they just have enough. They have to get it early in the morning. They just have enough. And this is God's way of providing for them in a faith way. So if we go down a little further in the chapter, we see that when they get to the seventh day, we'll scroll down a little further. When they get to the sixth day, they end up with twice what they had initially. And what's this? Well, tomorrow is the Sabbath. They don't know anything about it. This is news to them. They've not heard of the Sabbath. This has not been part of their law and custom. What's this? This is the Sabbath. You rest on this day. So on the sixth day, they gathered double the amount of food, 2 omers for each. They came, told Moses. Moses says, this is what the Lord meant. Tomorrow's a day of rest, a holy Sabbath of the Lord. So bake what you want, put it aside, and it'll be kept until morning. They put it aside, and it didn't turn foul. There were no maggots in it, because each other day, if they kept it for the next day, it turned bad. God gave them enough for each day. Then he says, 6 days you shall gather it. On the seventh day, the Sabbath, Shabbat, there will be none. Yet some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather, but they found nothing, and they get rebuked by the Lord. Okay, so before the Ten Commandments were given on Mount Sinai, God gave the seventh-day Sabbath to Israel. Again, it does not indicate in the text that they were familiar with this. Quite the contrary, they were not. And obviously in Egypt, they didn't get a seventh-day Sabbath rest. So this was news. This was something new, which would indicate this was not the custom of the people of Israel, let alone the human race, to commemorate the seventh day, which God had set apart at creation. Now we go to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, and God gives the 10 commandments to Israel, which are then repeated in Deuteronomy, the 5th chapter. And we know that one of the 10 commandments that God gives is to observe the seventh-day Sabbath. So as we look down, God speaks these words, I'm the Lord your God, brought you out of Egypt, have no other gods before me, don't make a sculptured image. So the prohibition of idolatry, worshiping and serving other gods. And then we get to verse 7, don't swear falsely by the name of the Lord. Verse 8, Zachoret Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. Remember the seventh day to keep it holy. Deuteronomy 5, it says to Shamor, to observe it. Here's Zachor, remember it. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. All right, Al Kain Berach et Adonai et Yom Shabbat vayikadshehu. In Deuteronomy 5, it doesn't point back to creation, but to the children of Israel being liberated from Egypt, based on which they remember the Sabbath. They were slaves, but now they've been set free, and they take this day to rest and to make it holy to the Lord. And then elsewhere, you have reminders about keeping the Sabbath through the 5 books of Moses. You even have, during the instructions of the building of the tabernacle, that they were to keep the Sabbath. So the later rabbis deduced from that, well, let's look at everything that was involved in building the tabernacle. And all of those things were prohibited to do on the Sabbath. And they came out with 39 subdivisions of labor. Again, this is the rabbis later reading this back in, traditional rabbis. 39 subdivisions of labor, hence the many, many, many laws in traditional Judaism about the Sabbath. But this is now given in the 10 Commandments. So set apart at creation, given to the children of Israel before Mount Sinai, now at Mount Sinai, one of the 10 Commandments. Now, many Christians will say, well, the 10 Commandments are always binding. That's commonly thought, commonly believed. 10 Commandments are always binding. But then they would say, well, then the Sabbath is Sunday. Nowhere, though, does the Bible switch the Sabbath to Sunday. And we'll look at that in a little while. We won't look at some of these other passages, but for example, Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, God says that the Sabbath was a sign between him and Israel. So this was not commanded for all the nations. All the nations were commanded, for example, don't murder. That was a universal moral command that God established after the flood in Genesis, the 9th chapter. But nowhere in the Hebrew Bible is there a universal command for all nations to observe the Sabbath. Rather, this was viewed as something covenantal between God and the Jewish people. Now, as history has unfolded, Muslims are known for a Friday Sabbath, Jews for the Saturday, the seventh-day Sabbath, and Christians for an eighth-day Sabbath, or a first day of the week Sabbath. So one on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Now, when we come back after the break, I want to look at some other prophetic passages that speak about an invitation to foreigners or the nations to keep the Sabbath, and then to look ahead to the millennial kingdom, where there seems to be Sabbath observance. So the argument would be, this was given to Israel in the past. Foreigners were invited to observe it. In the future, it will be for the whole world. Therefore, it should apply for the here and now for all followers of Jesus who want to please God and keep his commandments today. That would be the logic. So you see that those who talk about seventh-day Sabbath, they're not just making something up out of thin air. Those who believe it's important are not just reading something into the text that's not there. They're saying, hey, look, this is part of the 10 Commandments. It was established at creation. This is what we should be keeping. So I understand the strength of the argument and where it is coming from. And again, the argument for seventh-day Sabbath is a lot stronger than the argument for Sunday Sabbath.
All right, friends. So that was Dr. Brown, and I agree with him on many points, especially on the point that says that the argument for Saturday Sabbath is a lot stronger than the argument for Sunday. But where I do not agree with him, or where I disagree with him, is on a point that says that the Sabbath was given only to the Jews. Friends, I made it clear earlier that the Bible says the Sabbath was made for man. And if something was made for man, who was it given to? It was also given to man. So the fact that God communicated his Sabbath rest to his people, or to the people of Israel, did not mean that the Sabbath was only given to them. In the same way, the fact that God walked with the people of Israel in the olden times did not mean that God was only for the Israelites. God was for all people. So was the Sabbath. That is why anyone who joined himself to the Lord was to keep the Sabbath, was to keep his laws, including the Sabbath. Friends, so I would argue that the Sabbath was not only given to the Israelites, it was given to humanity. It was given to humans. Alright, friends, I'm going to pause here for this part, and I promise you that part 2 will be coming, and you do not want to miss it, because there are interesting things that Dr. Brown said about the Sabbath that you need to watch. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for you to also come in with your comments. What do you think about what Dr. Brown said about the Sabbath? Did he get it correct, or he was totally wrong? Friends, let us know what you think in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Once again, my name is Lawrence. See you next time.